shake, rattle, and troll.
It's time for the award-winning Shake, Rattle, and Troll.
Yeah, kiss the one goodbye. Grab your favorite poles. Me and the boys gonna shake.
A show for the serious fishermen as well as the novice looking for tips from the pros.
We got the power, we got the speed. We're running wide open on a midsummer breeze. Freshwater, saltwater, watch out, boys. Bass Daddy Don's gonna make some noise. It's me and the boys gonna shake, rattle, and
Now, here's your host, saltwater fisherman, the man that fears no fish, Bass Daddy and tournament pro, Don McDowell.
Yeah, man. Hey, I'm Don McDowell.
Special K.
Indeed you are.
Oh,
we have
yes.
a special guest today. Commissioner Kurt Davis is in the house now. Are you here on official capacity or you just come down to hang out?
Either way.
Okay, cool. And Joe Notch, a world-famous African hunter. Oh, my gosh, where do I start?
I have no idea.
Don't help him. Don't help him today.
No,
let him
I
do
know.
this all on his
We
own.
just try to figure out who he is today.
Yep.
Hey, we open up with some breaking news. The San Diego dock count 5 boats out yesterday, 6 trips, 282 angler, 110 yellowtail. JK, it's starting. It's coming.
They're coming. We'll be there in June.
Yeah, thing that's missing on this is the bluefin. Last week we had some bluefin, so we'll talk to Captain Laidback about 7:30, figure out what's going on. We're going to talk to Mike Hoffworth that went back to the Bassmasters Classic, and James Guggenauer at 8:30 with the Rim Country Fishing Report, seeing what the Mother Lake's doing. We're gaining ground on it. So I want to welcome you guys. I know you both have really been busy. Commissioner, what's the news?
Well, there's been all kinds of news. In fact, you put an article in front of me, which was one of the big news items of the week, which is President Trump signing the rollback of BLM's Planning 2.0 rule.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, very significant. What's really most significant, a lot of times the media misses this piece, is that it then prescribes that they can't create a new rule. So you can't just turn around and
Start all over
with a new rule that changes 3 words. The great thing is that planning rule that was put out by BLM was a complete. They ignored states' authorities in the rule, and so it's a big march forward. Another significant piece this week is the 10th Circuit ruled in favor of Utah, with Arizona being an amicus brief in that lawsuit, which has to do with when species reside only in a single state, that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or other federal agencies don't have authorities related to that species. And that's a very important notion going forward, again, recognizing states' authorities and managing its wildlife. So that was another.
And you mentioned how
forward.
many species do we have here in Arizona that are only in Arizona?
Again, I'm not the biologist, but by my count, let's just put it's past 10.
Yeah.
So that it has big ramifications for the ability of the state to plan its own future, deal with wildlife, and quite frankly, avoid some of the litigation that ends up with a lot of these.
Don't you think, though, that's
species.
going to be more litigation on behalf of, like, say, CBD, claiming that you are not performing your tasks the way you should and asking for federal intervention on an ESA animal?
Good point. However, if you do have, and the department is very aggressive in this, if you do have plans, if you are doing work on the ground, it's going to be hard to disprove that because the department does more work on the ground than the feds
That's true.
ever will.
Yeah.
So that gives a pretty significant advantage. The other big item of the week is the Sportsman's Act, which has a provision in it related to the state's ability to manage wildlife on the parks.
Oh.
That passed, and we still have the separate piece of legislation related to the specifics of the bison.
That's where I was
the
going
big
right away.
question. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hunt Unit 48.
But this provision, in those conversations that have been going on since the beginning of man with the Park Service about us being able to get in and manage the bison, this will help in those discussions, but it also does clearly delineate that authority as well. So, the next phase and a good step forward, it will begin now on the bison side. And then, again, that doesn't mean don't continue to push the legislation that just very specifically lays out. But this is a very, very good step in the right
What kind of a
direction.
timeline are we looking at to get that resolved?
Well, one of the things I've asked the department to do, I did it as soon as the act was passed, is managing the wildlife. One of the things that I'd like them to probe and look at, and they are doing that now, is what we may be able to do as far as moving the herd out of the park,
Hazing them out?
moving them out of the park.
Gentle. Be gentle.
Moving them out of the park, especially at critical times.
Like all year?
Well, yeah, I mean, or at least disperse it further, so that there's a wider geographic area that they tend to congregate in. So that's something I've asked them to do for the immediate, because clearly this act by Congress, talks about the management of wildlife. Well, it would be appropriate to manage that wildlife out of the park, or at least large segments of that population out of the park.
Do you think there'll be? I'm curious as to what you envision in terms of disbursement out of the park. How that could possibly happen.
Well, we've done captures already with the Park Service, actually.
Oh, really?
Where we moved about 2 years ago, we moved 50-some of the bison back down to House Rock at their request, to see if you could create a new biological tie between that herd that you moved back to its origination point, which was House Rock. The department's theory is that probably wouldn't work because they don't have any genetic memory of House Rock. But to cooperate and participate, we did that, and as soon as they were released back, they went back to where their genetic memory is.
Yeah. Hello, park.
Didn't shock anybody, right?
No.
So, but the bottom line is that dispersing them again over a period of time, and again, if you think about dispersing some of them based, some of the younger bison, that kind of thing. That's why I want the biologists in the department to look at that. It's obviously way outside my pay grade of knowledge, but is that something that we could immediately begin to pursue? And that, as we go through the rest of this process and all that kind of thing, could we immediately get in there and begin to push dispersal back onto the forest, out of the park?
That would be wonderful.
Joey, you and I have been talking a lot of stuff going on. We've been looking at the relationship with border issues here in Arizona, poaching and illegals and drug cartel and all that kind of stuff. You've got some buddies over in Africa. There seems to be a war between the park rangers and the poaching element over there. I think in the last 2 months they've had 13 park rangers killed by the poachers. What are your PHs telling you? Have you heard back from anybody?
I haven't heard back from them, but in the past, initially, when they set out the anti-poaching teams, they were allowed to shoot when they found poachers. Now they have to capture them. They can only shoot back if they're shot at. So
Fair enough.
Returning fire.
So the poachers get the first shot. And let me tell you, those poachers probably were typically trackers.
Yeah.
And probably half the population over there are trackers, and they're phenomenal. So they know how to hide. They know what's coming. So a lot of these,
It's a hit.
the anti-poaching teams are walking into traps. And
Wow.
These guys are sneaky, but then so are the anti-poaching teams that are out there. And but when you got somebody that you're looking for and they're setting up for you, yeah, it's probably going to be bad.
Wow.
So maybe the law gets reverted back that they're allowed to shoot first when they find anti-poachers.
Well, out in the bush,
poachers,
that's a pretty fine line. Once the cordite settles, you can't prove who shot first.
No, but they're They're protecting, the rhinos and the black rhinos especially.
I thought you were talking about John McCain again. Quit it.
And then ivory on elephants. That's what they're.
Well, China helped by signing that law.
All righty, we're going to stand down, take a break. When we come back, more with JK on the horse issue, Commissioner Davis with all his hard work, and I don't know where Joy's going. All righty, we're back. Mr. Kolazar, what's the news on the Heber Horse Initiative?
It's not an initiative, thank God. But
Whatever.
What it is there's a group of people who have finally recognized that since the Rodeo Chetasky fire back in 2001, that horses came over from the White Mountain Apache lands in some substantial numbers. I think there was almost 100 that crossed over during that time period. And one of the problems is that all the fencing that separated the boundaries came down. And each winter, for about 4 years after that, because of deadfalls, they couldn't keep the fences up, period, end of story. And so what happened is you had horses that said, well, we can stay here at the Howard Johnsons, or we can go on to the Weston Hotel right across this little fence line. And they have. And of course, there was aerial seeding of that area afterwards, and it became like a candy store for all wildlife. I mean, it sucked in elk from 4B and other areas. And consequently now what you've got is a resident herd that went from roughly 100 to as much as 600 animals right now. And, of course, you have a contingent of people who, and this is some arcane law that stated that you had the wild horse, the Heber wild horse area. You know more about it, Commissioner, don't you?
Horse management area.
Yeah, Heber horse management area. And there was supposed to be a small number. Well, this is obviously ballooned out of shape. But since it's on federal land, the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest, the state doesn't have any input, correct?
Correct.
And so, but between the ranchers, sportsmen, and other people, there's some concerns because they are rapidly, I mean, all you have to do is drive around south of Heber or over Garden. I mean, it's ludicrous how many animals there are. And they do, and they wander with impunity. They consume twice as much as cattle do. There's a problem brewing. And if we let it go another 4 years, we'll go from 600 to 1,200 horses, which you're starting to talk some serious impacts on the landscape. So there's a group that's getting together. If you go back to 2006, I think it was, the feds at that time wanted to remove some of the horses. There was a lawsuit filed in federal court that indicated that these horses were the long-lost descendants of the Spanish conquistadors. And the judge bought it and said, okay, before you do anything, you have to come up with a plan. And typical with the Forest Service, it became way, way down on the priority list. Well, fast forward now 12 years later, and they're finally starting to do something. I heard rumors of this group getting together 9 months ago.
Who's the group? Define the players at the table.
There's going to be a discussion chair, which is it's a group that was ferreted out through ASU for moderators because this is a highly volatile topic.
All right, stop. How in the hell did ASU get involved in this?
There was outreach by Fish and Wildlife because they don't have the capacity to understand or to figure out who to bring in for that kind of thing. And so they reached out to ASU.
Do you have a problem with that?
No, because finally the feds have admitted they don't know crap about something. So that's what they wound up doing. At any rate, so ASU hired this moderator team. The moderator team, I talked to them this week. They knew who I was based on the video that they saw.
Nice.
And she immediately said, yeah, we saw your horse meet. And I said, okay, never mind. And she said, no, we're going to interview you. Now, whether or not I'm on this team that comes to any decision-making, who knows? But quite frankly, they're putting together a team to try and come up with a quote-unquote solution. And the hard part is that there is no single direction within the horse lover community. Some say, let them go, let them do anything they want, don't touch them. Some say, okay, we recognize there might be an issue here, so why don't we try for some birth control? And there are some who say, well, maybe you should move some off the landscape so everything's okay. So they're all fighting amongst themselves. We as sportsmen who pay for everything that goes on in that land, we're going, excuse me, hello. And so we'll see. It's going to be a war.
Well, that's the thing. They need to get their checkbook out if they want to participate, just like Plan B up in Sedona. They don't have their checkbook out. They just think this is carte blanche and they can do anything damn thing they want to.
By the way, Commissioner, has the department been approached by Fish and Wildlife as to anything on this issue?
Not that I'm aware of, but that doesn't mean there hasn't been, there could be contact within the bureaucracy. But as a commissioner, no.
Yeah.
I'm aware of the
problem,
and again, it goes to the Organic Act itself, which created horse management areas, which is includes burros and any equine.
Let me ask Commissioner a rather pragmatic question. We have sovereign nations within a nation that are creating problems
within our nation
for themselves. We've got the Tana Odoms, which is a whole other can of border issues. We've got their sovereign nation within the sovereign nation of the United States that abuts a foreign nation, which part of their territory is on the other side of the border. We've got a fence issue with these guys. They're not taking care of the fences we have. Same thing, horses, cattle, a lot of sheep with all kinds of diseases outside the confines of their sovereign nation. We've got these guys up here who won't take care of their fences. Don't we as the United States of America have the ability to go in and say, look, you guys need to fix your fence?
But you prescribe the specifics, which is the United States / the federal government has that authority.
Yeah, and quite frankly, Don, for that 5 years after the fire, there was no way anybody in the world could maintain those fences.
I get that.
Except if we had harvested the burnt timber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was also a failure of the federal
now,
government.
who filed suit against that? Does it rhyme with Sierra Club and Center for Biological Diversity?
So you wouldn't have had the free fall,
taken
out all the fences, because you would have removed billions of board feet that could have been sold in the marketplace.
Now I get to walk all over them and step all over them. They're still there, 15 years later. And it's an impediment when you're trying to hike across a canyon. Trust me.
I know it's just again, it could have been the one good thing that came out of a fire of that type.
Yeah.
Again, differentiating between
natural
good fire and unnatural fire.
We keep not doing good things.
Correct. So
it
continue
has
to
to
damage
stop.
the habitat.
Yeah.
We're at 2 million plus acres of the world's largest ponderosa pine stand that's burned in catastrophic fires, not managed natural fire, catastrophic fire. We will have more. And so we're systematically, through being unwilling to use courts instead to try to manage habitat, we're burning ourselves and our wildlife. I'm hopeful that the next time we have a catastrophic fire, that the state will take the position that it is going to sue the federal government for the loss of wildlife. As we do it as a department all the time. When we remove somebody from the field, they for poaching, they pay a fine for the loss of that wildlife.
Yeah. And because of the gross mismanagement of the land,
we would charge and take a position that they are going to reimburse the state for the loss of those goshawks.
Has anybody ever tried that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Is there a statute of limitations? Why can't you go back? And,
Yes.
There is. 2 years.
I'm just saying.
But the next time, I'm very hopeful that
under your watch,
we would be around to do such a thing.
Have you had any opinions on that type of activity within the state? Have you talked to anybody at all, even off the cuff type conversations?
Yes, with our attorney general.
Okay, Mr. Branovich.
Yes,
and his thoughts.
Well, of course, they have to research that, but the federal government does pay people when they create problems. And this is clearly a problem that they've created. Now, I realize it's sometimes created by federal judges. It's, created by the enviro litigants who stop the management of habitat. But they are still ultimately responsible for those public lands. And so if you allow them to catastrophically burn and then kill all of our wildlife, some of which we've invested millions of dollars to
Absolutely,
manage,
we have.
we are due reimbursement for
Can
those.
we co-join you?
Yeah, as
a member as an organization, a 501c3 that puts money on the land, I think we should be. Yeah, we could co-join
because you've also lost catchments that you've invested in, which also help feed those species and that wildlife.
All God's little creatures.
Yes,
I heard that once said.
Mm-hmm. And
it would be ironic if we filed suit as the ADA for loss of habitat for the Mexican garter snake.
Mm-hmm. Well, but think about it too from the wolf perspective.
Yeah,
how many millions have been spent in the reintroduction efforts of the wolf? If more areas burn and we lose wolves, that's money. That's sportsmen's money. That's federal money as well. Obviously, that is thrown out the window when we lose those species.
Yeah.
So the federal government should be paying the state back for those losses because it's their mismanagement that's created this scenario.
I like the way you talk. It gets me all excited.
All righty, that said, we're going to change gears here and go to the saltwater side of life, see if we can raise the good ship Malahini. I'm Don McDowell.
Special K.
Joe Nocta.
Kirk David.
Come down here. You got down there. So what you want? One bourbon, one scotch, one beer.
All righty, we're back. Captain Bill is at large. The Malahinis out there floating around in the Southern Pacific. We don't know what they're doing. It's called fishing. Joey, you've got a new bobber for J-Cake. You want to walk me down through that?
No, this was invented in Phoenix.
Uh-oh.
From a man named Joe Hansen in the mid-'60s. Yeah, he came to my father. He didn't quite have it finished up. My father helped him with
it looks like it did survive the 60s based on the color. And
that'd be from Ron Popeil.
Yeah.
Well, back then the best plastic made was called styrene, but what this bobber does, is allow you to select the depth, any depth. I mean, you could go 40 feet if you wanted to.
And still have a bobber.
And actually allows you to roll your bait up right next to the bobber so you're not casting out 15, 20, 30 feet of line. When it hits the water, the top part releases and releases a line, and then you can fish at that depth, whatever depth you selected in the first place.
What a novel idea.
I liked it.
Yeah.
Why didn't it ever succeed? Do you know?
Well, Mr. Johansson passed away, and my father was selling these things. And then we had a fire in '74 that took our building out, and there was 40,000 of these things in the back of our shop.
Oh.
And the dies were in the back of the shop.
There you go. That'll do it.
Game's over.
So, yeah, it kind of went to the wayside after that. But this thing had some kind of fuel or something poured on it and kind of dinged up the styrene, but you can get the gist of it. That was a pretty cool idea.
Now, did you happen to take that to Texas?
No, I didn't, because I don't know if this would still float or not.
I'd get another. I mean, for people are always concerned about depth of line that they can do, although that's being adapted. I think there's other ways of doing it.
You know, guys at Surfcast in California, and they're throwing out long range fishing for stripers offshore. This on a larger scale would allow them to select any depth they wanted to fish at, and the fish couldn't run any. They could select the depth, and the bait could not run any further than what they had selected. So, yeah, I think it would still have some uses.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It just basically unspools once it hits water.
And Don, have you fished any islands in saltwater or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Not with a bobber.
Not with, yeah, but how about this with some live bait attached to it at a selected depth that they couldn't run and hide under rocks, and then big old grouper comes out and grabs it, and hopefully you can pull the grouper out of the rocks. But
I'm in.
yeah,
Makes perfectly good sense.
we haven't done it with this, but we have fished like Tortuga Island off of San Carlos, which is about a 55-mile little rock island out from San Carlos in Mexico there, and we have done extremely well on grouper and all kind of different fish close to the island.
So let me ask you, while we've got your attention, how are the big bore rifle scopes from Explorer Optics doing up at Lookout Mountain Outdoors? We just added one, and I want to thank you on behalf of Arizona Sportsmen for Wildlife Conservation, a new big bore rifle scope for this new raffle. It's a 4x16 power.
By 50.
By 50 with 30 millimeter tube.
Lighted reticles.
Green or red.
Green or red. People really need to check these out. For the price point and the quality you're getting, it's an amazing optic. And people that actually come in and look, I let them take them outside. And take a look at them. Make sure you adjust it for your eye.
Absolutely.
And people are incredibly impressed. And the owner, Junior in Flower Mound, Texas.
Nice.
Runs that whole thing. He's a great guy. His warranties have been very impressive, even on abuse. Unless you abuse him twice, and then he gets a little irritated. If you
Can't imagine that.
Yeah. So, but he's been a good guy to work with, and he's putting out a quality product, and especially for the money.
Interesting. Commissioner, I want to get your take on what Wyoming is up to.
That's all speculation.
I just got notification that they have released the first batch of 5 kangaroos in Wyoming. Can you help me out with this? I'm rather stunned at this point.
Isn't that planting an invasive species?
If I were, I guess I haven't read all the details, but if I were as a commissioner, I would be dead. I'd be dead against that. I mean, the idea that you would be a person that's responsible for protecting indigenous species in your state's wildlife, adding something that is not.
Could this be
make
another
their
hunting
job-
opportunity for Wyoming?
Well, they may be looking at it that way. But this again, not knowing the details, the department could have had a different feeling or a different position on this, but the way their system is set up in Wyoming, it's a direct gubernatorial appointment. It's basically it's similar to a natural resources agency model.
Yeah.
I mean, they are separate departments.
Somebody gets a wild hair up their butt, but they've been appointed by the governor. They can do anything.
Policymakers are at different levels than what we deal with in Arizona. I mean, the commission ultimately has authority. There you have a very different model of a legislative and gubernatorial authority. So who knows where that came from? As a department, I would hope that they would oppose the release of non-native species into their habitat.
Yeah, the past couple of years we've learned traveling back and forth to D.C. that Wyoming indeed is a little bit different than Arizona, some of the other western states. The greater sage grouse issue that popped up, that's coming back around, as you know. We were scheduled to be in D.C. this week, but because of appropriations, and 2 weeks ago there wasn't going to be an omnibus, now there is, and they're pushing to get that through this week, so that's been stalled. But apparently, all I was told was Wyoming made a deal with the devil, and I don't know what that means, to implement their own sage grouse plan, conservation plan.
Okay.
Kangaroos will do it. They'll stomp them to death.
Which was only one of 11 that was allowed by DOJ to go forward, and I'm not quite tracking on that. So.
But still, at the end of the day, being wildlife managers, you need to maintain the integrity of the entire system, your whole ecosystem, your wildlife system. I think you have to be very strident about protecting what wildly exists there, what God chose to put there, versus what you may find to be an interesting idea at the moment. I think if you look at introductions of non-native species in U.S. history,
Kangaroos.
most of them have not
Not
turned
done
out
well.
very well.
No.
Go to Louisiana sometime and watch along the swamp banks and river banks. You've got uncontrolled populations of a rat.
Oh yeah, the
that
nutria.
was- that has done, has created a lot of devastation in their ecosystem. Those things don't work well, and there's a reason why species reside where they reside. I believe in a divine creation, so I understand that probably God's a better biologist than we are, and there's a reason for species to exist where they exist, and to take things out of balance, I think, is always risky behavior.
Florida is, Louisiana,
Yeah.
being right next door, they've got 125 invasive species that are just absolutely devastating Florida.
Look
all
at
the
just grasses alone.
Yeah,
You
oh,
don't have to. You
oh,
can
yeah.
drive out to Fort McDowell Park if you want to see what happens with non-native grasses. You can go up to the North Kaibab, where sportsmen's groups help fund and participate in trying to beat back non-native plant species that harm ultimately the integrity of wildlife. It goes on, just plant species, animal species. Let's best be people that are stalwart in protecting the basis of what they have now, which was naturally created, and preserve that and spend our time and money on that. I'm a little bit shocked that Wyoming, the department, I love to find
Somebody
out.
had to be pulling their hair out. That's going to be interesting.
So they'll get a
Sidebars.
phone call Monday morning, trust me.
Yeah, because they have a huge wild horse problem too. There's a lot
Huge.
of
Yeah.
there's a lot of competition on that range
Yeah.
already.
Wolves.
Wolf, but on that, in those areas that I'm assuming they'd release them in, they have a significant horse population. They've
Yeah.
got, as
Antelope.
you mentioned, the sage grouse. They've got antelope. Exactly. How much competition are you going to put on what are really arid lands?
Oh,
that
yes.
area is arid,
Oh yes, it sure. That's Sagebrow City.
right? And so
Well, that may be new cowboy games up there. You put a wolf in an arena with a kangaroo.
And how about a boxing ring?
Woo!
Kangaroo's going to win.
Yeah, giddy up.
well, and like the horse, I would doubt that they would become a prey-based animal.
Yeah.
So you're going to end up with population problems. I
One,
just think
one
it's
thing I
very
know about the
risky.
kangaroo, they will fight you back.
Oh yeah.
So the wolf's probably going to go eat something that's a little easier.
Gee, I think. Yeah.
Joy, I know you've hunted a lot of things. You ever shoot a kangaroo?
No, I have not.
Still pretty fond of baboons, though.
All right. Can we get kangaroo meat in a can?
You just
Oh,
won't
here.
give up on that baboon, will you?
Oh, when we come back, it's just going to keep going downhill.
Oh yeah.
All righty, we're back. JK, I smell an opportunity here for Arizona. What fun would kangaroos be?
They would
Dude,
thrive here too.
kangaroos on the strip. Think about that, Commissioner.
Sure.
There's got to be spiky plants in Australia, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Snakes.
Oh yeah. They do real well.
Joy, you've been to Africa 11 times. What was your most memorable hunt besides poachers?
Archery Cape Buffalo hunt was probably as thrilling as I've seen there. Although nothing ever happened, we have had some more dangerous situations than, including buffalo at very close range on the archery hunt. But
Define close.
I had a bull get up as I was belly crawling and getting on my hands and knees and trying to move up. Nobody saw this bull. He got up out of the tall grass, 7-8 yards from me.
That's wake up time. Serious pucker factor.
Can you imagine?
No.
No.
Don't want to.
You know, when you want to freeze, that'll do it for you.
That would be called a pucker factor.
Yeah, big time.
And And the way he went out, there was no shot opportunity. And I don't know if I really wanted to shoot that close.
I wouldn't. Don't get them mad.
You know what's amazing, Commissioner, is he's so nonchalant about this. Okay, that weighs as much as your pickup truck. Okay. And
With
then
an attitude.
and then there's opportunities here with jaguars or leopards coming in the blind.
Well, we've had actually cheetahs.
Yeah,
okay.
don't say
Yeah.
jaguars because all of a sudden it's an endangered species in Africa.
Leopards are, for the most part, nocturnal. They're actually very difficult to see during daylight hours. I have seen them, but cheetahs would be more likely to be seen if you're in an area that has cheetahs. And we had one try to come in a pit blind with Valerie and I in it. That was interesting.
Interesting.
I'd rather it be a cheetah than a leopard, but I don't want any cat over 100 pounds in an 8x8 block
Box.
wall. Yeah. Yeah, probably wouldn't be good. But it didn't come in. It started to, but
Was there a shot opportunity?
Yeah.
actually, it's a CITES animal. You cannot bring it back into the States. You are allowed to take one over there. I didn't know that. And I mean, I had perfect opportunity to do it. And then Barry, why didn't you shoot? And I said, I can't bring it back home. Yeah, you can still take one. So I didn't, but and then I didn't have another opportunity to do it. But I wasn't the only one. We had another one that tried to come in, and that was a friend and I were over there, and he was in a pit blind, and he thought it was a leopard. And I think it was his first trip over there. And it was actually smelling the thatch, which is your cover on the front of the pit blind. And anyway, he didn't know what to do, so he stuck a rifle barrel out of the thatch right next to the cheetah. And then it got real exciting after that. I imagine that cheetah thought a snake was coming out of that thing. But anyway, he videoed some of it, and he was still shaking when when I got picked up. Yeah, there's been some fun stuff that you laugh about after the fact, but they've also had elephants that came into water and sniffed out the people in the pit blinds. And, and one cat, and they set them up, they put big rocks all the way around the pit blinds, and elephants will not walk on rocks. You're not going to see that. And it keeps them away from the pit blind. But it would suck up muddy water out of the water hole and sprayed it into. And the only thing we could come up with
Hoser.
they were mud covered from head to toe. And I think what that elephant was doing was eliminating the scent. It smelled human scent. They don't like humans, and it sprayed mud on them until the scent was gone, and it walked off.
Fair enough.
So, yeah, there's
Deodorant.
I've had a friend of mine in a hanging tree stand sleeping, and when he woke up, the ground was moving underneath him, and it was the back of an elephant about 3 feet from his feet. And he did some tree climbing real quick. There's just been a lot of incidents over there that were just hilarious. After the fact.
His definition of hilarious is very different than mine.
How about, well, you've met Dan. Purves.
Absolutely.
Okay. He was in a tree stand and a snake fell on 2 feet from where he was sitting. I mean, like a 5-6 foot snake. And of course, we don't know all the nasty species over there or what they look like. And I mean, Dan was just about ready to jump out of a 20-foot tree stand. And then the snake crawled up. He goaded it with an arrow before he jumped out, and it finally climbed up the tree, but wouldn't leave him alone. He finally had enough, and he climbed down out of the tree, got on a radio, and said, "Come pick me up.
I'm done."
Yeah, I'm done. So it happens. I mean, it's just it's Africa. It's you go over there, you're not going to sue anybody. Something happens to you, that it happens to you. So
It's part of the game.
yeah, you be as careful as you can, and and hope for the best.
Kind of like hunting on the White Mountain, eh, JK?
Oh, don't go there. Don't you go there. Yeah, that's a whole. You want to talk about a different country? It is very different.
So when's the self-defense aspect kick in? You're at risk. You've got things coming into your ground blind tree stands.
Well, the one time that Cheetah was trying to come in the blind, we did not have a firearm. And I think it was the following year that Barry made it mandatory that any bow hunter has a rifle with him. And so then you have some protection. And it's a big gun. I think the minimum was .375. They just doled out guns. There's 450 Ackleys, 458 Lots, and .375. So, I mean, you had big guns to protect yourself.
Big hole.
Nice. After that, Commissioner, I have nothing more to add.
Well, typically in the blinds, you're going to be okay for the most part. The big thing would be elephants getting to you and the way they design them.
For the most part.
I know if I went, I'd pack a lot of extra underwear after hearing these stories.
Man.
Well, we had a herd of elephants come into a tree stand, which actually Valerie videoed. And we did not have a firearm. That was prior to them giving us firearms to set these tree stands.
I know Valerie has a tendency not to stay awake in turkey stands here in the great state of Arizona. Does she have any problem staying awake in a tree stand?
She was wide awake for this.
Bless her heart.
As these bulls came in to start drinking at the water hole they were in, she said, "Should I video?" And I said, "Well, certainly." I said, "If they knock this tree down and kill us, maybe the camera survives. At least they know what happened."
I don't think they would have any doubt as to what happened when they found your squished remains.
Yeah, I got a punch in the arm for that.
Yep.
But she did video, and one bull actually put his trunk up and was sniffing us out, which started worrying me. Then the two bulls started fighting, so she actually filmed these two bulls going at it, and you wouldn't believe what they can knock down. I mean, they'd bump into a tree, huge branches snapping like twigs, and filmed it for about 100 yards. They just continued fighting all the way out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. We have no roll call to talk about today, but I will ask the Commissioner one thing. I want to commend you on all the feral hog information that is now being disseminated on the portal. Thank you.
Oh, can we now? Where is the greatest concentration of feral hogs? Do you know?
Black Mountain, Mud Mountain,
Where's that?
sort of up by Kingman.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, we need to build a wall because they're sneaking in across the
Las Vegas
Utah border.
Oh, Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are Mormon hogs.
Wait a minute. Kingman?
Yeah, but it's
Oh yeah.
it's due.
What? They didn't cross the Grand Canyon, Donnie?
No,
Nope,
I mean,
they're coming in. Well, look, you've got all the feral hogs, over the years up in Utah. They're moving north from northern Arizona. We had a truck accident. When was that? Back in the early 80s. That henceforth we have the stuff on the Topak Marsh that hasn't been managed up until lately. So we've got them on the Kaibab. We've got them in Jack's Canyon. You've seen them up there. We've got them north of Anderson Mesa. We've got them in Dugas. We've got them in Sierra Vista. We've got them on the out in Buckeye on the what's the mountains down there?
you mean along the Sonoran?
No, out by PIR.
Estrella?
Oh,
Estrellas, yeah.
yeah.
Got them down there. We have them.
I've got to find one. I just want to hunt one.
We're going to keep it up, and we will not be able to barbecue our way out of it. Not my lifetime, but certainly my kids' lifetime. But that said, when we come back in the second hour, we're going to talk to Mike Hoffar, spend a little bit of time at the Bassmasters Classic. I'm here with
Kurt Davis.
Joe Nocta.
Special K.
More of Shake,
the
Rattle,
horse
and Troll is
whisperer.
coming up.
Yeah, man, we're back. Hey, welcome to the second hour of Shake, Rattle, and Troll. Our special guest, Commissioner Kurt Davis, is in the house with the African hunter, Joe Nocta from Lookout Mountain Outdoors, and our resident horse expert.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't want to be a horse expert. Trust me.
Well, you've become quite the authority. Anyway, we want to welcome Mike Hoffarth, president of the Goodyear Bass Club. Mike, welcome. How are you doing, buddy?
Good. Good to hear from you, Don.
Well, thanks for playing along today. I understand you had quite an adventure back at the Bassmasters Classic.
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you, if you're a bass fisherman, bass angler, whatever, and that's not on your bucket list, you need to try to go to one of these events. I mean, as you guys know, it's the Super Bowl of bass fishing, and it's quite the event. Can't participate in something that around here or anywhere else, there's nothing like it with the expo that they have, which is this year. I was in Houston. The lake that they had the tournament on was Lake Conroe, about 50 miles north of Houston.
Yeah, that's right in Barry Lewis's backyard.
Yeah, in the town of Conroe, which is only about maybe 10 miles away. Beautiful little town. It was really cool. And that expo was something else, sitting in a 300,000 square foot convention center, right smack dab in the heart of downtown Houston.
Excellent. What's your opinion on this young man, 25-year-old, that devastated the field?
Well, that was something else. As you know, he came up through the ranks, through the Bass Nation, fishing, in youth and high school events. And then he qualified 3 years back to make a classic through the college national championship. As you know, they have, college national championships each year. And one angler from the college division gets a seed into the Bassmaster Classic. And that's how he was able to at least get into the Elite Series. They give those guys an option if they want to take it and fish the Elite Series. So he's been, elite fisherman now for about 3 years. This past year, he was ranked 6th Angler of the Year, which is pretty good for a 25-year-old young man fishing, with these other pros in this series of 52 anglers, that fish all year long to try to qualify for the Classic.
What was his final paycheck? Anybody tally that up with all the endorsements? He's looking at making millions.
Well, yeah, I think his initial payout's $300,000 for winning first place, but all the other stuff that comes along with it, they think, it totals it for sure well over, $500,000. I mean, he's pretty much set for his fishing expenses and stuff pretty much for the rest of his life with the all the sponsors. You get a truck sponsor, which is Toyota. You get the boats. You pretty much a choice of which boat you want to use, whichever sponsor wants to give you those boats to use, plus all the other stuff that comes along with it, all the equipment, rods, reels, lures, baits.
Let me set the table here for the commissioner. You're fishing the Super Bowl of bass fishing, okay? Fishing for millions. At the end of the day, you come off the water, guess what you get? You get a hot dog.
Yeah,
a hot dog. It's awesome.
And I'm happy.
Oh, yeah. Glad to have that hot dog. All right, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so, I mean, the whole thing is really very well done with how they put everything together with the tournament. You can go to the blast-offs, of course, in the morning, and they have all kinds of stuff out at the lake as well, other types of vendors and things like that. You can, take boat rides, stuff like that with boats that you possibly would like to purchase and other things going on. Of course, if you live in the area you can also go and view these, tournaments in your own boat. But the way they have things now with technology, I mean, all day long at the expo, they had big screen TVs all over the place, and they use camera boats, and they use drones and all kinds of stuff. So, it's like you're right there. Of course, they cut it off about 2 hours prior to the cutoff time, so it's just going to be somewhat of a suspense, when they come in for weigh-in, at the end of the day. So,
yeah, it's pretty good stuff. The technology that they're using anymore is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And,
how was, I understand Mike Iaconelli was acting up just a tad.
Yeah, you know Mike. I mean,
You go figure.
yeah, I mean you have to have that one or two anglers, I guess you would say, that cause commotion, and they're the funny guy, they're the crazy guy that gets out of hand.
Hey, look, it's like NASCAR. What is a NASCAR race without drama? You have to have it. It's America.
Yeah, yeah. So he's that designated guy for that. So, but anyways, Steve Pugh, our tournament director, because we run the high school program here in the state, and Steve and I went together as a team and to go and view this thing. We try to go at least once every 3 or 4 years. So really had a good time. The weigh-in was at Minute Maid Field, and from what I understand, it was the first time they had done it in a baseball venue, which was pretty cool, actually. They had it over by third base, sitting out, basically about shortstop, the big stage and all that. So then you had that whole third baseline area for seating and stuff. And so there's no lack of seating, and pretty much every seat in there is pretty good, unless you want to get in there super early to get a front row seat. But with the big screen TVs and everything, you can see and, of course, hear everything that's going on for the entire thing. So 3 days of, a lot of fun, other things to do around the city, and in the area. So it was very, very fun time that we had. And we're able also to see, some new boats that came out that are being introduced. The Champion line, which is now the Challenger line, was introduced there at the Classic. A nice bass boat. If you're a Champion boat owner or you like a Champion boat, we were able to view that and talk to the people involved with putting that boat together and stuff. So a good time, all in all.
Well, that's good stuff. I appreciate your report. What's going on with the high school guys here in Arizona?
Well, our high school guys will be finishing up on April 23rd at Apache Lake. That'll be their 5th and final tournament for the school year. We do one throw out, and the top 2 teams from the state will then move on to the national championship in July, I believe. They haven't really set the date, but and it's usually been at Kentucky Lake in Tennessee. So those 2 teams will be angling for that, for the national championship, which, if they win something like that, there's all kinds of sponsors, or they give out college sponsorships and stuff like that, which is nice.
Okay, for the listeners, we got about a minute to get this wrapped up.
Okay.
What's your contact information for anybody wanting to participate in the high school or the kids fishing?
First thing you could do is go to our website, which is azbassnation.com, and click on to high school, and then all the information's there, which also includes my phone number, which is 623-229-4650. And it's a little late now for this year, but maybe come out and fish this last tournament, get your feet wet, see what we do and what we have. And we have more than just hot dogs afterwards for the anglers and their parents and stuff like that. And then maybe try to participate next year. And a lot of fun. And it's very inexpensive, at least for entry fees and stuff like that and registration. So
what does it cost the kids all in to fish?
Well, they have to pay for their registration. Their minimum registration next year, I believe, will be it's going to have to go up a little bit, but it'll be $75, which is just the basic registration. And then for each tournament, it's $25 an angler to fish. All that money is put in an account, and we save that for expenses for the national championship.
All righty. Mike, you're a good man. I appreciate all you do. Mike Hoffworth, check him out, Arizona Bass Nation. I'm Don McDowell. We're going to flip into a break. When we come back, we're going to pick on the commissioner some more. This is fun stuff.
Yeah, we're back, and guess what? Is this a prank? Was it a prank? Because when I started reading they're going to release Tasmanian devils, I started to smell it bad. And Jimmy Unmocked is the one who keyed me in. This date of the release. And thank you, James. Please, I appreciate it. Was it yesterday, April 1st? April
Yeah.
Fools.
It is April Fool's, and now I feel so much better about the Wyoming Game and Fish.
Yeah,
Nice.
we're scratching our heads, going, "What kangaroos?"
Yes, but now we've had all kinds of discussion about what can we turn loose in Arizona for more hunting opportunities.
Nothing.
No, nothing. No. You know, none of it made sense, but it was still fun. And thanks, Jim. I appreciate the little heads
I
up.
still get pretty excited. You get the e-news from the department, and the way they phrase this, a spotlighting opportunity for the black-footed ferret. I always think that's a shooting opportunity. Yeah. And Joyce Francis gets all pissed off.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that, Don.
I already did. I emailed her and thanked her and asked her what caliber was appropriate for the black-footed ferret. Didn't go well. All right, we've got a lot of stuff on the table with the department. I don't even know where to begin. Any updates on the wolf program as it applies to White Mountain?
No, we'll be getting a briefing we have a meeting this week, commission meeting, and part of that agenda is an update on the wolf program. So we'll be getting all the data related to the current counts. We'll probably be talking, I'm sure, about the spread, where they've been moving, that kind of thing. So if people want to see that, they can tune in to the meeting. It's live broadcast. And,
Always good entertainment.
Yes.
Do you know what the latest condition is in terms of, is there an agreement with Fish and Wildlife and the White Mountain Apache tribe, or is it not? What's the last you heard?
Last I heard, there was still not.
Mm-hmm.
But that'll be, I'm sure, part of the conversation, what's going on, because as you know, you're the one that actually informed me first of the initial break between the White Mountain Apache and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And I know that subsequently there's been another vote and additional conversations. The bigger issue we've got coming down the pike is this coming September is the release of the first draft of the reintroduction plan, which, as you remember, we went to court to force a plan because there was not a actual plan. And that's where people will actually be able to see, what is the long-term trajectory of this? And is this simply a reintroduction in 2 states, or are we, if we're going to be serious about wolf reintroduction, are we going to recognize the fact that 90% of this activity has to occur in Mexico? So the September is going to be an important.
In that plan, Commissioner, is there going to be a definition as far as a hard number of what constitutes recovery so far as the population count?
Yes, the plan's mandated to do that.
Yeah, they have to.
And that, and again, that's going to set off. I mean, obviously, there'll be the first draft, and then there'll be obviously the lengthy comment period and all that kind of thing, because then to get to a final plan. But what it does is it forces this issue of what does reintroduction mean, where, how many. Are we serious, or are we just playing around, not being serious from a scientific standpoint? Again, I keep going back to, if you're serious about reintroduction and you believe in the integrity of where the species is supposed to reside, the historic range is 90% in Mexico. So if you're serious about this, then you have to have a serious plan that involves 90% of a reintroduction occurring in Mexico. If you don't support that, then I hold you're not serious about reintroduction, a recovery plan.
Don't you see that as a sign of disrespect by Sierra Club and Center for Biological Diversity and those folks, where they basically slough off anything to do with Mexico is not relevant?
Yeah, I think well, first of all, it's to me, it's unbelievable because there are multinational recoveries that occur all the time. Second is I think it's offensive to Mexico because Mexico has been a serious player in the reintroduction effort.
That's where the 7 came from, isn't it? In Mexico?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's
Gang of
it's
7.
a slap in the face to some serious work that's been done there. But the bigger thing to me is, again, if if we are conservationists and we believe that species should reside and exist and persist in their historic range, to not have a plan that is specific to that historic range lacks any scientific integrity.
But they're stepping away from that now. They're going to suitable habitat.
Yeah, that's Jurassic Park science.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because, again, the April Fool's joke, I'm sure Wyoming has suitable habitat for kangaroos.
Can you see the foot tracks on the snow of kangaroos with their tails?
So that, let's, if again we believe in truth and goodness, the truth is that you restore and manage species in their historic range. You don't create new ranges.
No.
Because then you will impede the persistence of other species. And that's why I call it Jurassic Park science. Once you're on that path, we can go to horses on this. We can go to burros. If we're going to be serious about preserving Arizona's over 800 species and wanting them to persist so that our grandchildren and great-grandchildren can see them and not damage our ecosystem, the balance that's in it, then we can't be playing Jurassic Park science. If we're serious about it. People then who want to do these kinds of things, in my opinion, are not serious.
I'm seeing, though, what's happening is I'm seeing a relevancy issue with the general public. The general 89% of the population is so disassociated with true wildlife that you see the image. I think this is the new wildlife viewing, is where they drive out the beeline with wine and cheese baskets and watch wild horses. And they're not wild. They're feral livestock that are quasi-tame, running and playing in the water. That's the new wildlife viewing instead of what we are accustomed to doing. That scares me, because they might want to have the little horses running in their backyards.
They're uneducated, John.
Yeah, that's it. That's
John,
education.
Yeah. John brings up, I think, probably maybe the most important thing facing the integrity of wildlife and wildlife management in our lifetime, and that is, as our country urbanizes, people's interaction with wildlife has changed dramatically, and it changes the worldview of wildlife, and Arizona is the second most urbanized state in the country. Only Rhode Island is more urbanized than Arizona. And we don't have the wildlife education that we used to in our school system. So as you disassociate people from actual wildlife and what that means, and the word wild,
yes,
it can create a distorted view. Not their fault. It changes the conditions in which,
the educational process is huge then, because people can't identify with it any longer because they are urbanized instead of being out in the rural areas.
Right.
Most people don't go. They drive to Payson and they want to see the elk as they're coming into Payson, those figurines that are carved out or cast bronze. Oh, look at the wildlife.
Right. No, it's something that's important to the ethos of our nation.
Yes.
And so I hope that the department, we are a very active campaign called Conserve and Protect.
Yes.
And one of the primary purposes of that campaign is to help educate people about what is wild and what does that mean. What are we conserving and protecting? Why are we conserving and protecting it? And the interrelationship between, again, Arizona is a very complicated place from the standpoint of wildlife management. Over 800 species that exist here, the most of any inland state in the country.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
How many do we have on the ESA list here?
Was it 35, I thought?
I think you're right, but there's 200 and some that are on the potential waiting list,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
In the minor
And that
leagues.
includes plants as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we have to manage one of the most complex environments in the country. Only states that have oceans, have shoreline, have more species than Arizona. That means every time you make decisions about what you're going to have, where, and how many, impacts all of those 800 species.
That's correct. Which
And
is
our
scary.
job, it is scary, and it's tough it's tough management, and when you enter politics into it,
Oh boy.
and then you enter into it, people not knowing. Yeah, I understand why people think burros are cute.
Yes.
But if they really understood that those burrows are doing horrific damage to habitat that house
They
these
don't get
other species, I think their attitude, though, would change about
Sure
the
it would.
management.
Yes.
I talked to how many people that I've changed their opinion on based on the science of what's going on. But that's just one person doing it. When you try and explain to the masses buy into what the media presents. And when the media shows wonderful, running, beautiful
Right.
horses, what are they going to say?
And the one story I'll just throw out there today so that people know, because they're taxpayers, their money, not just hunters and anglers. This is taxpayers' money. ADOT just put up 4 miles of fencing along I-17 to keep burros off I-17. The feds are paying for 40%. The taxpayers of Arizona are paying for 60%. And it's $1 million. I think it was $1 million a mile, something like that, to put chain link fence up.
I could have been on that.
And
done
they're
it
doing
cheaper.
it over in Mojave County.
Well, but bottom line is we're now using taxpayers' money to keep this is invasive invasive species, not wildlife, off of our freeways out of taxpayers' pockets for a program that's supposed to be funded by the federal government, where 60% of what they're spending is spent in Washington, D.C. And I haven't seen any burros on all my trips to Washington, D.C.
All righty, hold that thought. Boy, you're going to be sorry you brought that up.
Oh, no. Oh, no. This is
We'll be
good.
back.
Well, the morning's kinda damp. I'm not worried about cutting the grass. Left my truck at the boat ramp and my boat is full of gas. My old boss thinks I'm sick today. He won't have me to harass. 'Cause I'm out here on the river and he can kiss my big old bass. Kiss my bass. I'm going
Yeah, man, every Sunday morning at 8:30, we're kissing a big old fat bass. James Guggenauer, what's happening, my friend?
Hey, good morning, Don. What a great show this morning.
I appreciate your kind thoughts. We always have fun with the commissioner and our buddy Joe Nacha. He won't talk about shooting monkeys, but we're going to drag that out of him.
And I think you do this to me on purpose. You always do that wolf thing, and you get my blood boiling. But then you go to commercial and let me kind of calm down before.
Well, look, April 20th, I want to personally invite you up to Sedona. They're going to have a whole week of Meet the Apex Pack. You can have wine, cheese, offer your donations to proliferate wolf dogs, and all the other mismanagement things they're in favor of, along with Jim DeVos from the department. I will personally be there wearing my Wolf War shirt. No amnesties, just send them south and see how that works out for me.
Hey, James, by the way, I understand your angst with the wolf situation, but you, representing the Mogollon Sportsmen's Association, would be far, far more wise to go after the horse issue. Just saying.
It's just, and it's not so much the wolf program. I understand what the wolf program is trying to do. It's the lack of transparency. That's what bothers me. The lack of information, the lack of what's going on. If you just read the latest statement from Benjamin Tuttle about a wolf that was removed from Chiricahua area, and it goes through all this analysis of why they did it, and at the very bottom it says, oh, by the way, this was a lone female that was traveling by itself, and there were no other wolves in the area, and the bottom line was they were fear that they were going to lose this wolf, so rather than do that, they capture it and take it back to a more populated area.
No, they took it back to Mexico, but it's genetically important. That's one of the reasons they did that.
Genetically important, right. And, that's the other thing. When they were talking about the new 10J expansion, there were no genetic issues. They were all 100% pure Mexican gray wolves, no question. And now it's all about genetics.
Yes, but
wait a minute, Jim.
That whole science thing has changed.
Yeah, if you go back, I guarantee you these are not 100% Mexican gray wolves. There's dog in those things. Trust me.
You know, everybody has said that for years, but up until just recently, I don't think Fish and Wildlife would agree with that statement.
Well, now they don't want to talk about it.
Right.
All right.
Okay. Gotcha.
Enough about the wolves. What about big fat bass up on the Mother Lake?
A huge deal. I mean, this is all everybody's talking about here. We're going to have every angler in Tonto Basin, I think, at the Cholla Ramp on April 6th to help distribute another 40 to 45,000 Florida strain bass fingerlings.
And we have Commissioner Davis to thank for that.
We do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And in addition to that, another 15,000 maximum crappie that are going to be in our first time that we've...
That's the first time in the history of Arizona, right?
It is.
Nice.
Now,
Thanks,
these
Commissioner.
I'm sorry, the fingerlings are like 1 to 2 inches, and so we're going to have, they'll be in tubs of water, and we're going to have anglers go deposit those out throughout the lake.
You know, the real thank you goes to people like James. The issue of what was going on at Roosevelt, this has been an odyssey for the last 5 years of actually getting back to an aggressive management.
Oh yeah,
status, and it's from the folks up there, from yourself. But I'm proud of the progress that's being.
Well, your
made.
team, Cantrell and Curtis
Yeah.
Gill, and all of those folks are just have been awesome to work with.
Yeah, but
they get it.
But this came out of the work of you and Mr. Guggenhauer and other. I mean, that the issue surfaced and the pressure. Good pressure occurred, and it forced people into action. And the action's been pretty fast and furious for the last few
We're
years.
getting back to a blue ribbon fishery up on Roosevelt in Apache, wouldn't you say, James?
I would. I talk to a lot of anglers that fish Roosevelt almost daily, and I mean, they are positive that they are catching Florida strain bass that are 13 to 16 inch size right now. So,
from I don't know if you've talked to Ron Kirsten, but I hear from Ron in his incessant whining. He goes to the scale 2 tournaments in a row, Commissioner, with 20 pounds of fish in his bag. You think you're going to get a paycheck? He wasn't even close.
Wow.
Because they're like 20. I mean, there was like 20-pound bags, 21, 22, and I mean, that fishery is just absolutely blown up.
The work of the volunteers too, of the construction of the fish condos.
Yes,
I saw at the last meeting, the pictures of the ones that were already completed, ready to go. I mean, that's amazing. It's a great story of people on the ground doing
community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So thank you, Mr. Guggenhauer.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people involved in that. You hate to even name people because you start leaving them out. But the Gila County Roundtable Group, in conjunction with the Arizona Game and Fish Department, this is one of those true success stories. And anyone who thinks that the department doesn't listen or doesn't take action needs to go back and take a look at what's happened over the last 5 years at Roosevelt. I'm
thinking October, we'll have our first all-you-can-eat crappie fry sponsored by Arizona Game and Fish Department. Wouldn't that be national news? Come on. We'll bring some hot dogs.
Yeah.
All right, so who's catching what kind of fish on what bait, James?
Yeah, it is still springtime bass fishing. Fish are shallow. Don't go any deeper than 20 feet for any kind of bass fishing or even crappie fishing.
Yep.
Guys are catching crappie in like 2 feet of water. So that tells you that the crappie have started to spawn, or at least the males are getting up there. Most of the fish being caught are males. And so it's not going to be but another week or two of this good weather that we've been having before the females move up there. So crappie fishing is just at the beginning of its spawn. The bass is about halfway through. We have another full moon coming on April 10th, and that's going to bring another wave up into the shallows. But reaction baits, jerk baits, crank baits, spinner baits, all those have been spectacular. robo worms in a translucent color, like the morning dawn color. A lot of people are familiar with that. And Cincos on a drop shot technique are just killers. Guys are catching all the fish they want to right now.
Let me ask you, on the morning dawn, is a little tip of chartreuse making a difference?
There you go again, Don.
Well, I'm just asking, James.
Well, you told me that we couldn't give out all the details on it, but yes, you wanna get the ones with.
Yeah, but I didn't say which end to dip it in.
Hey, the lake is 68% full.
Nice.
The flows have slowed down from historic areas for a little last averages, but in the springtime we still normally have pretty good flow. So the lake's still going up, and I think 70% is probably achievable. We're still hoping for some more storms, but it's looking good down there at the water level. You can get into the lake now. For people coming up the Beeline and going in through Pumpkin Center area, the Indian Point ramp is open. I mean, you can launch and park your vehicle up in the parking lot.
When's the last time that thing had seen water?
It's been since 2012 or 11 or something like that.
Wow.
So, but I used it this last week, and it was just spectacular. I mean, if you're going to fish the tunnel in, that's a place to go in.
All right, good stuff. What else you got to add? We got to get this thing wrapped up.
All right, trout fishing. Our streams are still running pretty good up on the rim. There's still runoff that's going down there. Guys are fly fishing. They're saying they're doing well. They're using a dual fly setup on most of their fly rods right now, but you have to have a small weight on that fly rod since the water's running so hard. If you find them in pools, that's where they're going to be loading up. So always check that. And but yeah, it's starting to really turn on for the trout up there.
Good stuff. All right, hey, you have a great day. God bless you. You do a lot of good work. James Guggenauer, Rim Country Custom Rods, the master rod builder. Check him out. We'll be right back.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end.
All right, we're getting down to the end of this. I want to thank Joy for coming down. I know you have your hands full, and Commissioner, your plate is, really full.
Fun
stuff. How are we doing with our legislators this session?
Well, it's hopefully going to be budget time before long, and then they can go home. And that's
recess.
That's always the objective. Hopefully they'll wrap up. My prediction is just before Memorial Day.
Oh, good.
Yeah, well, you guys,
it hasn't been that contentious this year.
No, it's to the point now that it's really the budget and everything else is, they're going to sit around. This is the dangerous time because the budget's not done, but most of the bills have gone from houses of origin and through committee. And so there's a lot of time to twiddle thumbs. And that's when bad stuff happens.
Yeah.
Too much time on your hands. Wow.
Somebody starts thinking, and when they do that, you get trouble.
Joey, what do you got coming up at Lookout Mountain? You got a new line of bows coming in, from what I understand?
We're working on it. I did get in some the new carbon Martin Ultralight. Just showed up 2 days ago. It's a carbon riser, so they... Hoyt started it a few years back, and now Martin came out with one that might be even lighter than what the Hoyt is.
Are those any faster than what currently is on the market in terms of feet per second?
No,
off the shelf?
Speed's overrated anyway. When you get to the unbelievably fast bows, you're talking about very erratic cams. You get tuning issues. They come out of tune fast. Any bow shooting in the 320 to 350 range is going to take care of business. I don't care what animal you're facing in Arizona. Yep. It's going to go through.
Yeah, last Sunday we had, we call him Dr. Science. Carl P. was on.
Oh, yeah.
Carl Pugliese. He was one of the designers and still is for Rage Broadheads.
Don was telling me about it. Yeah, that's...
And he's got a new one coming out that's going to be real interesting. Same philosophy, the expansion of the blade, You get hit by one of those and it expands.
Something won't grow back.
No, it's devastating.
That's a 2.5-inch cut right there.
But I guess you can go. I think it's on YouTube, or you can go to Martin's site and watch them actually dry fire this bow
Really?
10 times in a row.
No.
Dry fire.
Dry fire. Really?
Dry fire the bow off of a machine.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Nobody else is going to do it.
Well, yeah, not on purpose, but and then they put it on a bow press to show you, like 100 times. They put it on a bow press to reassure you that the carbon riser will hold up. So, anyway,
real quick, I
that
wanted
bow,
to ask. Junior's got a new night optic scope out. What was your experience with that?
Well, other than me being an idiot, the scope worked fine.
Perfect. Okay.
There's a computer on it, and I got the scope. First of all, because I had never used it, we had to download new technology, which was free over the internet, and this thing will go to 200 yards at night, and I was going to use it in Texas. It has a one-shot zero on it, which that worked phenomenally well. So I set it up at like 25 yards, and this thing was 6 to 8 inches left and 6 to 8 inches high. You take your arrow keys, move over to where your shot hit, press a button, and the next shot absolutely center punched a little half-inch dot in the middle of the
Amazing
target.
stuff.
But here's the thing. Then we took it out to 100 yards, and I couldn't even hit a 4-foot chunk of plywood. Finally gave up on it, because a friend of mine was out there sighting in several rifles. I said, nah, I'm just not going to take it. Well, then it dawned on me that I remember after reading the instructions, I had to confirm that I was okay with the one-shot zero. I didn't do that, so it reverted it right back to where it was hitting before.
Nice.
So, yeah, user error. Other than that thing will be there for next year.
Nice.
Yeah.
I asked him that to ask you this. Not that this is a loaded question. We've done some good work allowing night hunting of predators, let's say coyotes, at certain times of the year. Is there an opportunity to go back and revisit that particular rule to integrate it with the calving season or fawning season, whatever you want to call it, and include night vision optics?
Don, this is a you've hit on an issue that's really important in the commission. There's a broader discussion here about fair chase and for long-term stability of the sport. I think we have to always be looking through the lens, the optics.
Thank you.
Of fair chase, and again, going to John's point, Special K, that these issues, we're dealing with a public that doesn't necessarily understand all the aspects of these things, and so as a commissioner, as a department, you really need to look at these through that broader, what I would call the fair chase lens.
Because somebody, the non-educated public, when the Republic releases that information in the format that they do, you want to talk about being pilloried and taking over the coals?
How do we educate the public on the devastation on the fawn crops with the coyotes? And God bless you for all you do, but we've got a rule that doesn't mean anything. You can go out and hunt coyotes at nighttime, but you can't see them because you can't use night optics. So if we're going to go out there and we're going to harvest and
fair chase, Donnie, fair chase rules. It's not right.
Look, forward-looking infrared is fair. Okay, works really well.
Again, I totally get the science and wanting to again manage complex species groups to ensure their survival, including those all-important antelope.
Antelope's huge,
who are a very susceptible species to all kinds of things, from weather to predators to blah 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 to fencing, etc. However, again, we have to deal with the reality of making sure that people go home and know that Arizona hunters are committed to and participate in fair chase.
Yep.
And this is I know this is very complicated issue.
Slippery slope.
But fair chase is very important, that we always, if anything, always err on the side of protecting that ethos that 99% of hunters believe in.
Yeah.
And that's a very important notion long-term for all kinds of reasons. Most of which is, again, we're dealing with many people in the public that don't understand the sport
Right.
and the value of the sport in managing all of these
Final
creatures.
question from me. At the next commission meeting, do I need to blue slip that?
I mean,
Good luck. Go ahead. You can blue
To
slip
get it on-
anything.
Get it on the table.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously, Don, you're always welcome to come and blue slip.
Yeah,
the
and,
commission.
and
I'm
they
not
are
gonna
always
blue slip.
welcome to ignore you.
Yeah, no,
And laugh.
no.
They laugh.
I think it's awesome that you come, and you know what? Making people think is a good thing, and challenging assumption is a good thing.
The mission meeting's this coming weekend, right?
Yeah, Friday all day at the headquarters here. We're in Phoenix this month, and Saturday as well.
Will there be hot dogs?
Never.
You need to get a hot dog vendor out there.
They have a vending machine that's
actually a great
overpriced.
idea. Having a food truck out there would be a great
Oh,
idea.
yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
It's the same guy that has the wonderful hot dogs down at Ben Avery.
Yeah, you know what? That's not a bad idea. was
I
gonna
have
ask you about
people.
that.
All right, Joy, any final thing to say about all the good stuff at Lookout Mountain other than check out the big bore rifle scopes?
No, the scopes and this new carbon bow from Martin. And then I carry a lot of recurves there. And, I'm back doing that now. I've been shooting recurve for 2.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I carry probably 20 different recurves on any day.
Talk about fair chase.
That is.
Yeah, it's a challenge for sure.
A lot of walking with a weapon.
And you can mount a fluoro right on the riser so you can shoot at night. Come on, Commissioner.
Not happening. And I would never support it.
How about feral hogs?
Absolutely.
Well, that's an interesting story because that's livestock. That's not game.
Correct.
That's a differentiation, and it's a invasive species for wildlife. So,
Yeah, I would not have an issue there. Because I've seen what can happen in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
New Mexico? Yeah.
Yes.
Now when you're dealing with invasives, that's a whole different.
Yeah.
You want to use all the potential
all
strategies
tools in the toolbox.
Exactly.
Yep.
Don't use a teeny tiny handsaw when you've got a lathe power saw going on
Yep.
there.
There you go,
That
Don.
and plenty of barbecue sauce.
There you go. Night vision for your odd 6 for hogs.
I'm in.
Oh dear, this is bad. This is going downhill. I'm glad we're almost done.
Strictly hogs, JK.
Strictly
I wouldn't.
until the
I
next.
wouldn't be
issue
using a
comes out.
recurve.
All righty.
if
I want
didn't
to
agree.
thank you guys once again for tuning in and playing along. Hope you learned something from the wisdom of the commissioner. It's always good to have you here, sir.
Thank you.
You do a fine job. Thank you for your service and your commitment doing what you do. Joy, what can
Don?
you say about shooting baboons, man? Hey, like us on Facebook.
like
Check out the
going
new
there,
ShakeRattleAndTroll.com website. Sign up for the newsletter. I'm Don McDowell.
Special K.
Joan Octa.
Kurt Davis.
This segment brought to you by Safeguard Business Systems.
Shake, rattle, and roll. Shake, rattle, and roll. Here's the rock